Hello and welcome to this training session as part of the course on security administration within Sage CRM. Today we're looking at creation of a security profile, and we're making very good progress through the topics that make up security administration within Sage CRM. Each topic builds on the former topic, so we're building a hierarchy of learning, and today we'll be touching on things that we actually dealt with in the previous lesson, which was the concept of creating and editing territory structures. But today we're looking at creating a security profile and setting the scene for understanding security policies as well. Now, in this lesson, as I said, we're looking at security profiles, and we looked at, in the previous lesson, the immediately previous lesson, we looked at the idea of security territories, which control what data a user can see. But today we're focusing on security profiles, which controls what a user can do with that data. And these two concepts work together, but they essentially solve very different problems. So let's start that process of understanding the differences between the two. This lesson, like all the other lessons, is being recorded and will be added to the support and training YouTube channel inside YouTube. So we'll be looking for the materials in the next couple of days. It will be added up onto the YouTube channel, and you can see all of these in your own time. The link there is on the slide in front of you. But let's have a look at what we mean by a security profile. So a security profile determines the permissions the user has to perform actions inside Sage CRM. So that's whether or not a user can view data, edit data, insert data, or delete records. It's not filtering on the data so much as filtering on the metadata and the actions, what we would be able to perform inside the interface. So if we can't view opportunities, we wouldn't see the opportunities tab. If we can't edit something, then we wouldn't see the change button. And if we can't insert, then we don't get to see the new button to allow us to create new records of that type. And if we don't have the delete rights, then we wouldn't be able to remove a record from the interface. Now, profiles apply to a user. So every user belongs to a security profile, and profiles express permissions over every entity within the system, every main entity within the system. So that would be people, companies, opportunities, communications, the library, and cases. And every user then ends up with a matrix of thinking about what they can do with each entity. And so this might be your expression. That here you could see that if this was your security profile, you can see that you can't insert a company, you can't delete it, but you can, in fact, view, edit, and insert people. You can view and edit companies, do all actions on opportunities, but you can do view, edit, and insert for cases, but you can't delete. So that's a hypothetical example of a security profile. If we relate this to what we've seen before and understanding the idea of security territories and compare that with security profiles, I've said that security territories are to do with what data a user can see, whereas a, excuse me, whereas a security profile is concerned with what actions the user can carry out. Now, I'd like you to imagine two users. The first user is Susan May. Now, she has the security profile sales manager, and she has full rights over delete, insert, view, and edit rights over companies, persons, opportunities. She can only view cases. So you can see there in the bottom right of this screen, this idea of the sales manager. So she can carry out all of the activities. She can't delete, but she can insert, view, and edit the items. It's very rare. It's very rare, actually. You hand out delete rights to people, largely because you don't. From an audit perspective, if something has been entered, you actually only want it to exist in the context of a workflow where it reaches a point of, if there's an opportunity is lost, you want to record that it was lost, not that an opportunity was deleted. You'd want to have an appropriate status to mean that it was managed out of your workflow rather than pretending it never was. So you can see that if we develop this idea of Susan May being a sales manager, now Susan May is also in the demo data. She is also somebody who is in the territory of US and Canada. Now she's labeled as belonging to that territory herself, and that means that she can see any data in the US and Canada and the data that sits underneath that. And so you can see here that she would mean that she could access, if you look at the little icon next to the US and Canada image hierarchy on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that she has access to US West, US East, US Central, and Canada. So that is something that we were looking at yesterday. If we think about Kylie Ward, on the other hand, she has a security profile membership, which makes her a support manager. And she has full rights to be able to insert, view, and edit, but not delete, over people, companies, and cases. She has view rights only on opportunities. Now that restricts what data she can see, but you'll notice that she, as in the actions that she can carry out, but she has actually root security territory of worldwide. So her security is higher, but she belongs to the root territory of worldwide, which means theoretically she could see everything within the system, but her rights are then limited by the actions that she can perform on each of those data items. So she may actually see more companies, or she may actually see more opportunities, but not be able to perform actions on them. It would only be possible to perform actions on them if she had the right security profile that allowed her to edit opportunities. She can see cases, she can act on those, she can carry out work. Now, security profiles matter enormously. They are there to be able to allow you to create partitions inside your organization. It allows you to protect sensitive data, to enforce role-based access, and to prevent accidental deletion or modification, and to ensure compliance and governance issues. Not every user in your system should be able to delete cases, and not every user should be able to edit company information, which may, for example, in an integrated system, include financial information or information about their creditworthiness. Using security profiles allows administrators to implement the principle of least privilege. So you determine what people can do, and you should be giving people the absolute minimum rights that they should be able to use in order to perform their work. And good profile design really manages out a lot of operational risk in terms of sensitivity of data and loss of data and mismanagement of data. We can develop this idea a little bit more, because if we're going to create a new profile, one of the things to note is that there is a unrestricted profile that is automatically created for the system administrator when you implement Sage CRM. Now, that concept of the unrestricted profile is very important, because it's to ensure that the system administrator can bypass all of the security rights, and so that they can retain global access. Now, that's a safeguard built into the system. So theoretically, you're not going to be able to, if you like, paint yourself into a corner. You can't lock yourself out of Sage CRM, because the system administrator should be able to always be able to log on and have access. Now, it's important that you do not carelessly modify the unrestricted profile. And it is best practice when creating new users to support those new users with new profiles, rather than edit the one core unrestricted one. So you want to be able to design your security profiles around the personas of your users. We'll develop this idea now by logging on, and I'll actually walk through that process. So security profiles are managed by the system administrator, and I'm going to log on as a system administrator. I switched over into Chrome, and I'm going to just click to log on. And now I can navigate to my profile. So I need to open up my profile menu into administration, and then once in here, I can click on users. And looking at this, I need to come down into security, and within the security, I can click on security profiles. So I can actually go ahead and start to explore security profiles in the top of the screen. Now, this is a listing of all of the existing security profiles. And what this allows us to do is understand how we can manage all of the rights, if we need to, of all of the main security profiles that are in existence. And you'll notice that on this tab, it's saying that these are the profile rights for the user's home territory. Now, if we think about the membership of a territory, every user has to belong to a territory. So Susan May, in my example, just a couple of slides back, I said that she was in US and Canada, so that's her home territory. I mentioned that Kylie Ward, her home territory was worldwide, so she had access to the root territory and all of the children of the complete hierarchy. We're going to be seeing in the next lesson how we can be a little bit more sophisticated by adding more nuances to those, and I'll explain a little bit more about the concept of policies coming in this lesson, but we will be dealing with it in the next lesson. But for now, what I want to do is just to click on Edit All Rights. What you see now here is that this is where we can go through and we can take a broad brush to decide which profiles, based on the home territory anyone is in, what they should be able to see and do. So what interface elements can they see? Can they see a tab for the opportunities? Can they see a tab for the leads, tab for the cases? Can they carry out and click the new button? Can they click the edit button? So this is the actions that will control the user experience inside the interface by granting access to particular features. Now, granting access is an important idea. I just want to click cancel here and return back here and look at the idea of the creation of a new profile. So if I click at new profile, we're starting to enter this in. Now, what I have to do here is I have to give this a descriptive name. So I have to put in the description. We're going to see that when I click save, once I've given it a name, that there will be no access at all granted at first to anything. And that's important to understand. But equally at this point as well, it's understanding that the naming we approach should be logical and be based on the persona or role of the user. So it is right that you should say that this is a sales user, a sales manager, this is a customer service agent or a field engineer, and actually field engineer is what I'm going to put in here. So I'm going to add in the fact that this is a new territory, a new profile for sales engineers who are working in the field. And once I've given that, I can save this profile. But you'll see that on that row where it says our new profile is in here, so our customer service field engineer has no access to cases, communication, company, lead, library, opportunity, or person. So in order to do that, I actually have to click now the name of the profile, and this brings me into an edit screen to allow me to select which view, edit, insert, or delete rights I want to give to any of these entities. And so I can complete that. And here you can see that I must explicitly grant rights, and the rights are for every single entity. And so a sales user may have full rights on opportunities, a service user may have full rights on cases, but you'll see with that what can be called the dive rights, delete, insert, view, and edit, there is complete granular control. Now I can click save. Now, next I want to look at how security profiles can have additional rights associated with specific territories rather than the user's home territories. So this is where we're getting into just a high view of what breaking the idea of a policy on top of this. A concrete example might be that salespeople have a need to look at records added by the marketing team that sit in the marketing territory. So remember when we were looking at our concept of the security territories, we understand our structure. So thinking about this, a sales user may have rights, view, edit, insert in their home territory of US West, but they need to be able to see any of the leads being progressed by the marketing team in the marketing North America territory. Now, rights can be defined according to both the profile and the territory. So the profile is all about the what actions you can carry out, but whether you see the data is down to your territory, with the additional policy granted in the context of our profile. Now, this allows very precise control. You might allow editing in a home territory, but restrict editing or deletion in another territory. And what we will see as I walk through this example, it's especially important within the context of multinational deployments or where there is a hybrid territory model which mixes function with geography, just like we have in the demo system. So if I click back into the software, let's have a look at what it is to be the sales rep profile in the demo system. So if I click to go into the sales rep, we can see all of the users in the profile. So we can see that there are some 9 users using this profile. But importantly, we can also see that in addition to rights over the home territory, there are other rights over other territories. Now, one of those is a real territory. You might notice that the others are really what we would call a pseudo territory. Then they're really the concept of whether you assigned to it or you originally created it, for example. So we can see all of the users here, and you can see that they have been also given rights over the marketing parental territory. That means that these sales rep profile members can see data in the marketing territory, in the cases, communication, company, lead, opportunity, and person tables. We're going to be seeing in the course of the next lesson about security policies that there are these other special types of territory rights displayed. We see them displayed here too. And this is whether the data has been assigned to the user or whether they originally created the data. So you can have additional rights which fine-tune your overall experience of what data you can access and see. So these additional rights are controlled by security policies, and we'll be looking at them in the next lesson and how they affect the user's experience. But I don't want to jump ahead, but we just need to introduce a concept so you're there ready for it when we look at this in the next lesson. Now, I'm just going to cancel that screen, and I'm going to look at the profile that I created earlier, which is the field engineer. Now here we can see that there are no users associated with this new profile. And if you remember back to when we created a new user, we had the option to create a user, or in fact even a user template, so that it is associated with a user profile. But the other way of associating users with the profile is to come into the security profile and then use the option move user into this profile. And if I click this button now, we'll see that there's a search screen which allows me to find the users that I want to move. And so if I search for RO, you can see that I've started to search for a guy called, or a user called Graham Rogers. I can select Graham Rogers, and there I've added him in. As I click to add him into the user section of the screen. And now if I click save on the right hand side of the screen, the reassignment of security profiles takes place. So I just need to click save, and you can see I've been brought back into this overview screen. So what do I want to do? I've come back into my field engineer screen. I can see that the user has been moved into this customer service field engineer profile. And if I have done this, I need to test that everything is working correctly. So I'm going to open up another browser session, and I'm going to log on as that user, Rogers G. So if I click log on, and you can see that I've come into my cases tab in my CRM, and after assigning a profile to a user, we can log on as that user, and here we have to ask some questions. Can they see the correct data? Can they perform the expected actions? Are the right buttons available to them? And are they excluded from the correct actions as well? Are they restricted and correctly blocked from finding a delete button or hitting an edit button? Now, you always have to test security profiles on a non-administrative account because administrators, as I explained, bypass security. So if you test as the admin, you won't see the restrictions. So it's always important when you're working with the security profiles that you understand that practical validation is essential. Let's think about what's next. There are some typical design patterns to follow in the naming of profiles. System administrator, sales manager, sales user, customer service, marketing user, read-only user. If you are defining roles and profiles, keep those profiles role-based so it's clear and understandable to everyone what is a reasonable understanding of what they should be able to do. Avoid creating one-off profiles for individuals. That becomes very difficult to keep track of. So design your profiles for maintainability. And the more profiles you create, the harder long-term management becomes. So that's just something to think about. And there are some common mistakes to avoid when you come to creating our new security profiles. People can confuse what the role of territories and profiles are. So they can drift into creating a European marketing user rather than thinking about an actual requirement to use territories to restrict access to European data. People can give too many delete rights to items within the system, and therefore they will actually work against the concept of workflow bringing data to a managed conclusion. So we want to be able to understand what has been worked on rather than simply deleting items. You might make a mistake of trying to, or editing the unrestricted administration profile. Keep that default. And also, when you come to making changes, do make sure that you carry out testing on that. And you want to keep the number of profiles to a minimum. The most common mistake is thinking that the profiles control visibility of data. The profiles really are restricting access to the actions within the user interface. So make sure that you are properly understanding the role of the territories and then the separate role of the profiles. Don't give your users delete rights unless they have to have delete rights. And if you are making changes, then it is a good idea to monitor what was the previous state and then what the new state of these security rights are as well. Because security design should be intentional and you should be able to keep a track of those in case a problem occurs. Security profiles in the user experience. Now, this is related to the concept of we might run into a problem. If a user can't see a record, an individual record, it's probably a territory issue. If they find that they can see data, but then they can't carry out an action on that data, then it's probably a profile issue. If a button is missing from the interface, then it is also a profile restriction. Understanding the roles of the security territories in restricting access to the data that can be seen and accessed versus the profile which carries out, with which determines which actions can be carried out, means that you will be able to troubleshoot problems more quickly. And if a user says, I can't do something, then check their territory rights first of all, and then check their profile. This is the systematic way of troubleshooting access to data. So what we've looked at here as we come to the end of today, we've looked at how security profiles control what users can do, how they work alongside security territories, how you must explicitly configure the rights within inside a user profile, and those profiles should be very clearly role-based or persona-based within a system, and you do need to test that you have given the correct rights to that profile. So territories control visibilities, profiles control capability. Together they form that core security framework, and if you get the thinking right about the configuration, then it will improve both security and usability of the data. We've come to the end of today's lesson. So we've looked at here the creation of a security profile. We're developing this thought still in the next lesson when we come on to edit security profiles. But we are, if you like, that's probably the main lesson in the series that was the hardest conceptual lesson. But let's see if we've got any questions. There are no questions appearing in front of me, so I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me today. I look forward to seeing you on the next lesson. Until then, thank you all and goodbye.